Raiders. They are a group of individuals that hunt shadow creatures, loot treasures, and protect people. It is a dangerous job, but these raiders are regarded as heroes. Their job inspires people and they are also a target of envy. It is also a universally known fact that a raider's heart beats the fastest when they are about to die. Sitting in a quiet restaurant, Jeong Woo-man is dressed in a business suit with a cup of coffee in front of him. He is a job broker at the raider agency and hooks up people who aren't part of any guild with raider jobs. Sitting across him is Min Yi-hyun, who had received a call from Jeong Woo-man earlier about a job. Yi-hyun was ecstatic to know that he had gotten his first job in a while. So, the two of them had decided to meet up at the restaurant to discuss the details of the job. As Woo-man continues explaining, Yi-hyun is stunned to learn that he has been asked to be on the front line with a shield in a dungeon of undead monsters. He is appalled that he has pretty much been asked to become a meat shield. Woo-man tells him that it's the only job available. Min Yi-hyun says that even kids that are lower ranked than him have no trouble finding good raider jobs. To this, Woo-man replies by telling him that even if someone has a high rank, very few clients put in a request for warrior class raiders such as Min Yi-hyun. Yi-hyun then realizes the bitter truth that nowadays, magicians are the ones owning the scene. Warriors are comparatively slower than them and are also prone to a higher frequency of injuries, so they aren't the first choice for clients. As warriors stand in the front while magicians stand safely at the back while hunting monsters, warriors usually receive more injuries. Things were different 10 years ago, but now there is no longer a place for warrior class raiders. Min Yi-hyun is frustrated and thinks to himself that he should have picked magic back in middle school. 11 years ago, in middle school, Min Yi-hyun had gotten a good score on the Awakener aptitude test and therefore had the opportunity to go to Millie's Academy, which is an educational facility that specializes in training raiders. His magic aptitude score was 97% back then. Even Seona, who is the current top magician, only received an aptitude score of 92%. Contradictory to his magic aptitude score, he had scored only 34% in combat aptitude, but in the end, he ended up picking combat mainly because magic users had the worst reputation at that time. They were merely used as human buffing machines, as they couldn't even take down a low-rank monster without the help of a combatant. However, now, combat users are in decline while magicians are regarded as the best. Min Yi-hyun thinks to himself if his life would be better now if he had chosen to be a magician back in school. Normally, a raider's growth stops when they reach the age of 20, so there's no point in regretting things now. Woo-man explains to Yi-hyun that such opportunities do not come along often, and that he was going to hand this chance to someone else, but then he remembered Yi-hyun's circumstances and decided to help him out. Yi-hyun then decides that he can't be picky about jobs in order to survive and agrees to take on the task. Woo-man tells him he'll text the location and that he would see him there at 8 p.m. Yi-hyun asks him to focus on his agency work and not to meet him there. Woo-man replies that he has some work to do there tomorrow. The next day, Min Yi-hyun is at the location with a bunch of other raiders. He wonders where Woo-man is since he said he would meet him at the location. He wonders to himself why Woo-man still works for the agency despite being a rank magician. As he's walking around in the cave, he sees a fellow warrior sitting by a tree and polishing his shield with a cloth. Suddenly, he gets up and screams Yi-hyun's name. Yi-hyun realizes that it's Myung-ho, an old acquaintance. They both discuss about how these kind of jobs may be dangerous but pay well and how nobody respects warriors these days. Soon, everyone is asked to gather at the entrance, as they will be entering it in 30 minutes. When entering a dungeon, raiders have to be aware of two things. The first one is coming across an unexpected fortune. The fortune in dungeons can mess with the raider's mind and make them let their guard down, which can be dangerous. And while they're unable to think logically, the dungeon tests them. Then, Yi-hyun does something he does every time before going into a dungeon. He looks at a picture on his phone, a picture of him and his mother. He whispers to the picture that he will be back safely. They enter the dark cave and come face to face with the undead monsters. A magician yells at them to keep their shields straight and not to move. The warriors stand still at the front as the magician chant their spells at the back. And in no time, the monsters have been defeated by the magic. Yi-hyun realizes that he has nothing to worry about as these magicians are part of the Meteor Guild, which has been regarded as one of the best. The warriors take a break to drink water before they enter the boss room. Myung-ho asks Yi-hyun if he has received any good drops, as this dungeon is in a ranked dungeon where good items are dropped. Yi-hyun opens up his screen to check and sees a blurry and pixelated image. He then receives a message that the Aesir system has gone down and the connection with the user will be temporarily cut. He tries to reboot it, but that fails too. Then, Yihyun hears a voice telling him to follow the light. Another message states that an unknown presence is infiltrating the Aesir system. Suddenly, everything around him turns dark except for small specks of light around him. But no one else can see it, so he decides to check it out. He tells Myung-ho that he would be back in a moment and walks in the direction of the light. The wisps of light lead him down a deserted path. He receives more messages letting him know that he cannot access the status window. He wonders how this has happened, as he has been unawakened ever since he was 10 years old and the system has never gone down in those 17 years. He comes to an understanding that the voice he heard may be related to the system shut down, and that the Aesir system might be going through a big change. The Aesir system is actually a reference to the Asgardian gods such as Odin and Thor. It has been theorized that the name of the system originated from the Aesir. It was the final bastion of hope for mankind, after being driven to the brink of extinction. 20 years ago, in 2011, it was known as the Year of Calamity. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a giant tree of unknowable height grew. One morning, it suddenly sprouted, growing to cover the skies in just 9 days. Some people called it as a sign of human extinction, while others called it the Tree of Blessing. The real name of this tree is Yggdrasil, the world tree from the Asgardian mythology. On the 9th day, after the tree grew completely, tragedy began. All over the world, gigantic monsters broke out and half of mankind died because of these monsters. The other half died due to plague and famine. But then, a small hope for humankind was born. The first awakened. A human who wielded the authority of the gods appeared. And among them, there were those who hunted monsters. They were called raiders. The Aesir system is the strongest weapons wielded by the strongest heroes of mankind. But what would happen if something big were to change the entire Aesir system? As Yihyun continues following the light, he comes across a giant door. He thinks it might be a treasure gate. Treasure gates are hidden rooms that very rarely appear in high-level dungeons. These rooms usually contain special items or rare ingredients. It has been said that the items from a treasure gate can be sold for at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. He prays to God that there should be a class or higher gear inside the treasure gate. He opens the doors, and inside, the room is well lit and consists of tall pillars. In between the pillars stands a pedestal with an object on it. Yihyun knows that it is the special item. As he gets closer to it, his system seems to be partially recovered, and it notifies him that a new item has been acquired. Yihyun is happy that things are going the right way. As he picks up the item, he sees that it's called Odin's Lost Eye. His system states that when it is equipped, it can allow the user to understand runes and use magic to disarm or destroy. And most importantly, it is the only mythic item in the world. Yihyun continues to read about the skill it provides, a skill called universal derivation, which enables one to understand a magic formula and then destroy it. He also reads about its effects, which are learning of the universal derivation skill, usage of powerful magic without incanting, and blank cards which can be consumed to copy another person's skills. Yihyun thinks about the previous auctions where the highest rank item was S rank and it sold for millions of dollars. So, this mythic rank item that he has just obtained must definitely be more valuable. Mainly because it's the only one in the world. By selling this, he won't need to struggle anymore, and he won't be looked down upon by magic guilds and used as a meat shield. He looks at the item in his hand and decides that he should at least try it on before selling it, because coming across a unique, mythic rank item won't ever happen again. Just as he is about to do it, the system provides a warning that Odin's Eye becomes bound to the user when it is equipped. Yihyun is mortified and cancels it right away. He heaves a sigh of relief as he almost wasted a mythic rank item that was hard to obtain. He decides not to continue raiding dungeons and just sell the item in the black market because he's over 20 years old, and so his level cannot increase anymore. Suddenly, his system is down again. He walks back to where he was waiting with Myung-ho and apologizes for being late. Yihyun thinks that telling people about the mythic item he just obtained would be equivalent to asking to be killed, so he decides to keep quiet about it, and as soon as the dungeon raid is over, he would go and sell it. His best tactic at the moment would be to avoid any suspicion from others. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's explosions and Yihyun falls down and sees that the air around him has turned into a purple-colored mist. He notices other people coughing and gasping and presumes that it is poison mist. Placing his arm over his nose and mouth, he stumbles around and sees Myung-ho. AMD tells him that the mist is dangerous. The next moment, a sword pierces through Myung-ho's back and he falls down to his death. Yihyun decides to run out of there as soon as possible, as all these are actions of dungeon contract killers and not dungeon monsters. As he brainstorms on what to do and how to get out of there safely, he sees the shadow of a man walking towards him. He sends a fiery, electric bolts towards him and Yihyun manages to dodge it in time. As soon as the person approaches closer to him, Yihyun is shocked to see that it is none other than Wooman, the job broker at the Raider agency. Wooman confesses to Yihyun that he is the one behind the poison mist and the attack of the Meteor Guild. When Yihyun asks him why he did so, he responds by saying it was a request from his client and also because there are a lot of people who dislike the Meteor Guild. Yihyun is in disbelief that Wooman is actually a dungeon assassin. Dungeon assassin is the name given to those who misuse closed dungeons and commit murder inside it. In his mind, Yihyun debates whether he should take him on or not. Wooman is a rank magician while he is just a D-rank warrior. He wants to take revenge for those who fought in the dungeon with him and especially manhwa. But he decides that it's better to not come in between Wooman's fight with the Meteor Guild and stay quiet. Yihyun is still contemplating his decision when suddenly, Wooman sends a fire blast towards him. Yihyun blocks it in the nick of time. Wooman then reveals that aside from the Meteor Guild, Yihyun is also one of the targets. Yihyun ponders why someone would target him and who would want him dead. His mind rings with voices and images of his father calling him a useless bastard, and he is quick to realize that his own father is the one who wants him dead. Wooman calls him he's smart for figuring it out. Then, Yihyun asks him if he was commissioned by the same person 5 years ago as well. The reply is yes, and Yihyun learns that his father had also ordered to kill his own wife, which is Yihyun's mother. As soon as he reveals this information, with one single move, Wooman uses his fire abilities to kill Yihyun. Wooman thinks he has killed him, but just then, he sees the lost Eye of Odin appear out of nowhere. It disappears and in its place stands Yihyun. Wooman senses that something is off and wants to kill Yihyun immediately. But his powers aren't working as Yihyun has equipped the mythic item and devoured Wooman's powers using a blank card. As a result of equipping the eye, one of Yihyun's eyes turns into a fiery gold color. Yihyun uses Wooman's own magical powers against him. He even uses a lightning chain spell, which is a high-rank spell. In the aftermath of the fight, both Wooman and Yihyun are on the ground, unable to get up. Yihyun ruminates over the fact that he just received the mythic item and it's already led him to his death. His system has a message for him telling him that a new operating system has been downloaded. If he chooses to run it, time will be regressed to the period the user most desires. Yihyun decides to run it as he has no other choice at the moment. The system informs him that from now on, he is the adversary of the high and mighty Aesir, and that he has received 2 new skills. Yihyun shoots up from his bed in confusion. He finds himself in his old house and is sure that it's nothing but a dream. The system reminds him that he has successfully reverted back in time to his most desired period. When he sees his mother, he goes up to her to give her a hug and wishes that he never wakes up from this dream. Yihyun has reverted back in time to November 15, 2020. He receives a quest which requires him to rest and recover his health, for which he would receive a blank card as a reward. The operating system has been changed to Nornir system. He knows he's been given another chance at life. Yihyun sees this as an opportunity to turn his life around. He reaches for the calendar on his desk. Written on it are the words "Write the application for Millie's Academy. Please, be a combat class no matter what." He scratches the last line out and decides that he is going to be a magician in this life. Later, Yihyun and his mother are eating at the dining table while he sheds happy tears. His mother doesn't understand why he's reacting this way. He tells her about his plans of changing his application to magician class. At first, she is surprised to hear this from him as being a warrior is all he has ever talked about, but then, she agrees to support him no matter what he chooses to do. Yihyun has successfully completed his mission of resting, so he receives his reward. His level has returned to what it was 11 years ago, and his stats have also been reset. He takes a look at both his passive and active skills. Then, he decides to learn new skills to better himself. He's happy that he still owns the lightning chain skill, but tells himself that what he needs most is a healing spell. The year is now 2020. Magician class are treated like garbage when compared to warrior classes. However, raiders with healing skills are exceptions. They are treated like royalty no matter where they are, because even without being a raider, they can work in the medical field. So, Yihyun wants to learn the healing skill so nobody would look down on him anywhere he went. The only issue is that meeting an awakened with a healing skill is not that easy. Yihyun's phone buzzes. He takes a look and it's a message from Kim Yoo-jung, his childhood best friend. They both dreamed of attending Millie's Academy together. His mind flashes back to how she had died in his arms. He winces as he thinks about what happened, but then convinces himself that he has a chance to change things now. He reads the message. Yoo-jung has asked him to come with her to see Saintess Yoo Seung-yoon, who is giving a lecture downtown. Lee-hyun remembers the saintess and the magic that represents her, which is sacrifice, and immediately texts Yoo-jung and agrees to join her for the lecture. Saintess Seung-yoon is traveling in her limo to the lecture. Her manager, Sung-yi, tells her that her busy and hectic schedule is taking a toll on her and she should slow down. He wishes that there was at least one more person with a healing spell on the level of sacrifice, as that could help to heal her, because if she kept going on, she might collapse soon. A few minutes later, both Yoo-jung and Lee-hyun meet up and they sit down to watch the lecture. Yeon was guildmaster. Saintess Yoo Seung-yoon was a top-rated healer who was well known not just in the country, but the entire world. During a time when working as a raider wasn't commonplace, she was the only person who tried to protect the citizens before any other. Lee-hyun hopes he can learn from Seung-yoon, as it would be extremely useful in the future. Yoo Seung-yoon is giving her speech about encouraging more people to become raiders, while Lee-hyun thinks how 2 months from now, Yoo Seung-yoon will fall into a critical condition during the 81 dungeon raid because of her sacrifice healing spell. Seung-yoon continues with her lecture. She talks about how the current world is in an unprecedented period of disaster. Yggdrasil. She also mentions how after the appearance of monsters, countless people have lost their lives, but with the appearance of the awakened and raiders a few years ago, the situation has gotten a little better. But amongst the current awakened, only 20% are volunteering as raiders. So she insists more people to join as raiders and be courageous, as courage is what will change the world. When her lecture is over, Kim Yoo-jung is really inspired and can't stop talking about how Seung-yoon has more than enough qualifications to be her role model. Lee-hyun says that Seung-yoon wouldn't like to have such qualifications and informs Yoo-jung that he has other work to attend to. Before he leaves, he tells Yoo-jung that he changed his career path to magic and asks her to teach him magic theory. Before she can respond, Lee-hyun leaves and Yoo-jung is upset as she feels abandoned by him. Lee-hyun goes up to Sung-yi, Seung-yoon's manager. At first, Sung-yi assumes that he's just another fan and tells him that it's not a good time to give her gifts. But Lee-hyun states the real reason he came to see him. He tells him that he knows that Seung-yoon is sick, but he also knows how to cure her. Sung-yi angrily asks him where he heard about this while grabbing Lee-hyun's collar. Seung-yoon overhears this from her car and asks Lee-hyun if he can take responsibility for those words he just mentioned. He replies that he can definitely heal her illness. Seung-yoon would be able to tell immediately if he was lying, but Lee-hyun seems confident. She also has 2 hours to spare before her next event, so she suggests to Lee-hyun that they both go somewhere quiet to talk. She leads him to her office and they both sit down to talk. She asks him questions one by one, starting with how he found out about her illness. Lee-hyun tells her that he can't answer it and apologizes for it. He also says that if she really wants to hear it, he would tell her, but he would not heal her after that. When asked how he would heal her, Lee-hyun says that he plans on copying her skill. Sung-yi gets extremely angry and shouts at Lee-hyun that he doesn't know what he's talking about, as it is the guildmaster's unique skill. Unique skills are skills that stand at a higher rank than the pinnacle of skills, which are S-ranked skills. Unique skills such as sacrifice can only be obtained through either hereditary succession or by a unique individual. The formulae for unique skills does not exist. Because of that, unique skills are monopolized by an individual or a family. Lee-hyun tells Sung-yi to calm down and assures him that he wouldn't even have come to them if he didn't believe that he could do it. The underlying principle of Seung-yoon's skill, as the name suggests, is sacrifice, an offering to the gods, and because of that, Yoo Seung-yoon was restricted from healing herself. The only way to heal injuries caused by one's own skill is by using a skill of the same or higher rank. Lee-hyun convinces them that copying her skill would be the best method, as a higher skill than sacrifice does not exist. Seung-yoon agrees to Lee-hyun's plan, and without their knowledge, he uses his blank card to acquire her sacrifice skill. Lee-hyun then shows them that he is able to activate the sacrifice skill. Now that Seung-yoon believes that he has the ability and capability to heal her, Lee-hyun says that they will now begin the negotiations. In return for his favor of healing Seung-yoon, Lee-hyun wants her as his sponsor, as he has big dreams, which cannot be fulfilled without money and connections. Seung-yoon agrees to his terms by saying that he is talented and worth the investment, but only on one condition. The condition is that Lee-hyun must join her guild because of 3 reasons. The first being the fact that he figured out that she was ill all by himself, so his investigative ability must be high. The second reason is that he copied her skills perfectly. And thirdly, the most important point, was that even though Seung-yoon was right in front of him, Lee-hyun showed no nervousness. Lee-hyun thinks that it could work to his advantage, as being part of a guild will enable him to learn more and be successful. But it is illegal to make a contract between a guild and a student who isn't an adult yet. So Seung-yoon offers him a priority negotiation rights contract. a contract where the guild would support the student who isn't an adult yet, but when they become one, the guild would have priority over other guilds in signing a contract with them. Yi-hyun sees it as a great opportunity but decides to make a decision later. Seung-yoon tells him she'd send the contract to his house, and Yi-hyun begins to heal her using the sacrifice skill. Sung-yi is amazed that it's working and apologizes to Yi-hyun for what he'd said before. When the healing process is complete, Seung-yoon cannot feel any of the symptoms anymore. She asks Yi-hyun if he received the penalty for using the skill on her to heal. Yi-hyun replies that he'll be fine as a skill copied using a blank card will disable all penalties. The next day, Sung-yi takes Yi-hyun, on his request, to a low-rank dungeon that belongs to the Yeonhwa Guild, so he can raid it and hence level up. He is provided with spare items and tools for raiding the E-rank dungeon. He is also given a warp stone, using which he can return to the entrance if he finds himself in danger. Sung-yi gives him the stone as a token of his apology. Park Hana, assistant to Seung-yoon, hands her Yi-hyun's profile. Seung-yoon is surprised to see that he is actually a warrior class applicant with an excellent score in magic. She is stunned and asks Sung-yi to ask Yi-hyun to meet her as soon as he comes out of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Yi-hyun is in the land of the dead monsters. A monster shoots arrows with paralytic poison towards him, but Yi-hyun defeats it by activating the sacrifice skill. Yoo-jung is in her bedroom wondering why Yi-hyun is acting different. She is especially mad at him for leaving her behind after the lecture. She doesn't understand why someone who dislikes places with lots of people immediately agreed to meet her there. And worst of all, he randomly decided to change his career path to magician out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Yi-hyun is still in the dungeon battling 4 wraiths. Even though sacrifice is only a healing skill, when fighting against the undead, it turns into a powerful wide area skill called Light's Judgment. During the fight, the staff provided by the Yeonhwa Guild cracks and breaks into 2, so he uses the sacrifice skill as an attack skill. When he's managed to defeat them all, he earns plenty of experience points. Yi-hyun perceives that just because he has copied the skill onto a blank card, it doesn't mean that he has mastered it. He is determined to gain more experience in order to use the skill more efficiently. Suddenly, Yi-hyun is unable to breathe. He sees that the dungeon boss, Nightshade, has appeared. The system warns him that he will not be able to fight against Nightshade as his level is no match for the boss, and he should leave the dungeon quickly. As Yi-hyun is about to use the warp stone, it slips from his hand and falls to the floor. His HP is decreasing and he is unable to dodge Nightshade. In an unexpected turn of events, Nightshade's movements come to a stop. Hel, the goddess of death, who rules over Helheim, appears and calls Yi-hyun as the child who carries the fate of the adversary. Hel says that Yi-hyun is the one who is going to go up against Aesir, but he is just a mere child with a normal physique and mediocre magic skills. She continues to tell him that Ragnarok is coming soon and he has become stronger quickly. She finally says that if he is unable to do so and return to that hell, she would kill him herself. She poses him with a quest to defeat Nightshade with the terms that if Yi-hyun doesn't beat the boss in 2 months and prove that he is strong, powerful, and worthy, she would kill him. Everything goes dark and Yi-hyun wakes up at the entrance of the dungeon. His wounds seem to have disappeared as if they were never there in the first place. He thinks that Hel must have healed him. Yi-hyun is now motivated to become stronger and never stop because otherwise, Hel would kill him. He realizes that if he has to be a good magician and beat Nightshade, he needs to start by learning the basics of magic. The next day, Yi-hyun goes to meet Guildmaster Seung-yoon as she had requested to meet him, regarding his awakened profile. When they meet, he tells her that the guild contract is favorable, but he has one condition, which is to teach him the basics of casting spells. But Seung-yoon has a condition of her own. Before she becomes his teacher, she wants to test his talent and skills. She asks him to show her his talent by overcoming a mana cube. A mana cube was normally used by magicians who are at least B rank, who wanted a better understanding of their mana sensitivity. Since Yi-hyun is still not used to being a magician, this could be a demanding test for him. Yi-hyun knows it's going to be a difficult task, but he is soon assured by Seung-yoon that even if he failed in this task, there won't be a problem with the priority negotiation rights contract. Sung-yi sets up the mana cube and Yi-hyun enters it. It feels like a deep ocean with mana, but he has no problems with breathing. Mana is similar to oxygen in this world. It is necessary for casting spells or activating skills, but being exposed to very concentrated mana for a long period of time could be dangerous. Among the many whirlpools, there's only one exit in the mana cube. In the dizzyingly tangled wavelengths, Yi-hyun attempts to feel the wavelengths of the mana to find the path connected to the outside. Just then, he sees a crystal and it seems overwhelmingly powerful, as if it contains this whole ocean of mana. Outside the mana cube, Seung-yoon and Sung-yi discuss about how long they think Yi-hyun will take. Seung-yoon says that she was the fastest in the country and she took 40 minutes. Sung-yi says that it will be one of two cases. Yi-hyun either won't be able to overcome the cube or he will set a new record. Suddenly, they see a crack in the mana cube. They are both shocked to see that it's only been 10 minutes. Sung-yi and Seung-yoon are both wondering what the hell is happening in there. Inside the mana cube, Yi-hyun is trying to figure out ways to get to the outside. He feels that the mana from the crystal is much denser than its surroundings. He realizes that it is the core maintaining the mana cube, so if he manages to break it, he would be able to get out of there without having to look for an exit. He grabs it in his palm and crushes it and makes it out in a record-breaking time of 10 minutes. He also manages to acquire a skill called Essence of Mana Application. Seeing this, Seung-yoon and Sung-yi are too stunned to speak. Usually, only 7% of magicians can break out of a mana cube, and even they would take at least 3 hours on average. B ranks take 2 hours. A ranks take about an hour and a half. S ranks take anywhere between an hour and 30 minutes. But Yi-hyun has even beaten Camilla from the European Union. Camilla holds the record for making out of a mana cube the fastest. She was a genius magician who made the Guinness Book of Records with a record of 36 minutes. But Yi-hyun has just broken her record with a difference of 26 minutes. Sung-yi congratulates Yi-hyun on his amazing job. Seung-yoon asks Yi-hyun how he made it out in just 10 minutes. He replies that he crushed the crystal. Seung-yoon is taken aback because an ordinary awakened would not even be able to find it, let alone crush it. So the fact that Yi-hyun was able to do so means that Yi-hyun's power exceeds the mana in the cube, and Seung-yoon is impressed. So she swears to him that she would make him the greatest magician in the world. Outside Yi-hyun's home, his mother and Yoo-jung are waiting for him as he's late and is not answering his phone either. Then, they see a fancy car pull up. Then Yi-hyun get out of it and both his mom and Yoo-jung are surprised at the sight. In Yi-hyun's room, Yoo-jung sits on his bed giving him an angry look. She is angry with him as he has been acting strange for the past couple of days. She cannot seem to comprehend why he would choose magic, out of nowhere, despite wanting to be a warrior all these years. She asks him if he has gone insane. Yoo-jung reminds him how magicians don't make enough money, which is one of the main reasons Yi-hyun had initially decided to choose warrior class. But then, Yi-hyun remembers what Woo-jin had told him about how warriors are slow at taking care of things, so they are never the client's first choice. Yi-hyun doesn't want to talk about it anymore, so he asks her what she's doing here in his house. Yoo-jung lets him know that his mom told her to sleep over at his house as her parents have gone abroad. Kim Yoo-jung is actually the only daughter of an affluent family. Her parents dismantle monster corpses and sell the parts to different countries, so they often travel to foreign countries and she stays over at his house as their parents are friends. Yi-hyun then requests her to teach him magic theory basics as he has very little knowledge of it. She asks for something in return for teaching him, and after thinking about what she wants for a while, she asks Yi-hyun to grant her one wish in return for her favor of teaching him magic theory. Yi-hyun agrees but gives her wish an expiry date of 1 year, hoping that she would forget it by then. After a little disagreement, Kim Yoo-jung agrees to this. Because of her serious expression, Yi-hyun asks her what her wish is that she's being so serious for. He also playfully tells her that she couldn't look uglier. Out of anger, Yoo-jung grabs the pillow and hits Yi-hyun for teasing her. In a dungeon, surrounded by crows, Min Seong-oh is battling monsters. A man comes up to him and thanks him for helping him with the dungeon raid. Min Seong-oh thanks him for the compliment, and then the man goes on to tell him that he would be honored to have him as part of his guild, the Scarlet Guild. Seong-oh replies that he's not planning to join a guild anytime soon. He tries to convince Seong-oh by saying that Scarlet Guild would provide him with the best treatment. Min Seong-oh thinks that it was a vulgar sense of greed. But what would one expect from a human? But humans aren't the only ones like that, are they? By the time Seong-oh leaves the place, the man is confused as to why he was there at the place. Back in Seung-yoon's office, Yi-hyun is present for his first lesson. But Seung-yoon demands to see how good his battle sense and reflexes are before they begin the first lesson. She tells him they're going to have a spar. Yi-hyun voices that it's a bit too much for the first lesson. Seung-yoon replies that it won't be an issue for someone who made it out of a mana cube in 10 minutes, and so she asks him to attack her. Yi-hyun takes his stance, placing his left foot forward, bending his knees slightly. Yi-hyun lowers his shoulders as much as possible, a posture typically used by warriors that would allow him to easily dodge and move. He leans forward to throw a punch but is immediately blocked by Seung-yoon's hand. Yi-hyun is surprised that he hasn't been able to even get one hit in. Despite Seung-yoon being a healer, she disapproves of his tactic and says that he still has not discarded his warrior habits, and magicians should not recklessly dash forward like that. She continues to teach him how magicians always weaken their opponents from a distance before landing the final blow. If he fights by closing the distance between him and the opponent too much, as a magician who already has a low defense, he would fall. She knows he has more potential, so she asks him to try again. But this time, she would fight back too. She makes him understand that he would have to see her fight as well in order for him to fully learn the concept of how a magician battles. And even if she somehow manages to hurt him, she would heal him right back up. So, she attacks him, but Yihyun blocks it swiftly. When it's his turn, Yihyun activates Lightning Chain skill, but Seung-yoon is unfazed by it. Her next attack gets Yihyun, but he still manages to stand up, taking Seung-yoon by surprise. She says that even though she lowered the strength of the spell, she didn't expect him to get up. She then asks him if he would be able to endure another skill called Holy Arrow. As it's heading towards Yihyun, he uses Universal Derivation skill and destroys her spell. Seung-yoon cannot believe her eyes that an untrained kid is able to perform so well. She is in disbelief over how he can cast spells without incanting. To a magician, incantations are something that always accompanied casting spells as a rule. It was possible for high-level magicians to incant silently at the cost of lowering the strength of the spell, but Yihyun is still a beginner at magic, so Seung-yoon has no idea how he's able to do so. At this point of the fight, Yihyun doesn't have much mana left. He is frustrated that nothing seems to be working. Seung turns around and compliments Yihyun by telling him that he's full of surprises. But before he can even react, she attacks him and Yihyun flips and falls to the ground. Yihyun keeps thinking about how he didn't even see that last attack coming. So this must be the difference between an S-rank raider and him. Seung-yoon sees that because of his time as a warrior hopeful, Yihyun has gained close combat experience, ability to cast without delays, and unbelievable magic derivation speed. Seung-yoon is impressed by Yihyun and tells him that she had a certain thought while she was observing his fighting style. She says that everyone's thought about it at least one time, but nobody has achieved it so far. A fighting style that only he can learn. Seung-yoon then asks him to call her teacher from now and congratulates him on becoming her first apprentice. When Yihyun is back home, Yoo-jung is teaching him the basics of magic theory. Through drawings, she teaches him about the most important types of magic: battle magic, buff magic, and healing magic. The system alerts Yihyun that his understanding of derivations and magic efficiency has increased. Yihyun sees that the system always notifies him without fail. It's almost as if the system explicitly wants him to improve. As they're discussing more about how he switched path from warrior to magician, suddenly Yihyun finds himself in the midst of another realm. It's dark and eerie. Seong Min-ho is also there, and Yihyun hears a strange voice asking him if he really chose this path on his own accord. Yihyun is back in his room and ponders if he was just imagining it. His mind drifts back to Hell and her quest, but he tells himself that he shouldn't lose focus, so he tries to think of something more productive, like the valuable pill that would help him overcome this wall. In the Yeonhwa Guild, Sung-yi and Seung-yoon discuss about the thing she wants to teach Yihyun. Sung-yi reasons with her that many raiders have tried but no one has succeeded so far. But Seung-yoon reminds Sung-yi that Yihyun is talented, and if another S-rank magician is to appear in the future, it would be him. Seung-yoon is the only magician in the world who became an S-rank raider. Even then, as a healer, her effectiveness in battle was a bit low. But Yihyun has now shown up like a comet, and he has the capabilities to shake up the whole magic world. Later on, Yihyun is concentrating on making a mana enhancement pill, which doesn't exist yet as it is still 2020. The mana pill, like the name suggests, is a pill that permanently increases the mana of the awakened who takes it. It was an item that all magicians coveted. Yihyun is trying hard to nail it, but even after using up 3 sets of ingredients, he still has not been able to succeed. As of 2020, the pill won't be invented for another 5 years, and Yihyun is the only one knows about the ingredients and the steps needed to make it. Before he returned to the past, the pill's recipe was freely shared by a world-class alchemist. When he published the recipe, he mentioned that he hopes that the pill would be of great use to raiders across the world. Yihyun concludes that working endlessly on the recipe will not work. Instead, it's better to go to Lee Yi-sung, the alchemist. Lee Yi-sung is currently a senior in the first year at Millie's Academy, so that's where Yihyun is heading to. When his mother comes home from work, she is horrified to see that the kitchen is an absolute mess. Everything's been thrown around, so she thinks that it might have been a burglary. But nothing has been stolen. She wonders if there's a burglar in the world who only messes up kitchens. Back when the Yggdrasil first appeared and monsters started pouring out, there were a few people who established themselves the quickest. One of them was Quick Blade Lee Yishin. When the first awakened vanished without a trace, Lee Yishin came to take his place as the first S-rank raider in Korea. His son is none other than Lee Yiseng, the alchemist, who Yihyun is about to meet. So, Yihyun is off to take a portal to Daegu. Daegu is currently abandoned due to the monster outbreak. It was a city where monsters poured from all corners and one had to be very careful when stepping in there. But there was one reason why people still went there: Millie's Academy. As Yihyun stands at the entrance of his old school, he reminisces about the time he spent there. It was a great part of his childhood, but it also brought back horrible memories. He walks around the academy's campus, trying to think of where Yiseng could be when he comes across a bully beating up a fellow student for being a stutterer. The student being bullied is about to fall, but Yihyun catches him. The student looks up, and when Yihyun sees his face, he quickly recognizes him as Lee Yiseng. The bully grabs Yihyun by the collar for interrupting his fight. Yihyun uses the tactics taught to him by Yujung and casts a spell on the bully, activating a beam of light that shoots like an arrow and breaks the bully's arm. The bully becomes furious as Yihyun has put his reputation to shame in front of the whole academy. The man lunges forward to attack him, but Yihyun wraps mana around him as a barrier, a move taught to him by Seung-yoon. This move enables any attack to bounce off the barrier around him. The bully lays on the ground, unable to move due to the injuries caused by Yihyun. Yihyun takes pity on him and pours a potion on his face to help him heal. Yiseng watches the potion being poured out of the bottle with wide eyes. Yihyun says that he doesn't know who made the potion, but it's quite effective. Yihyun leads Lee Yiseng to a quiet corner where no one is around to hear them. He then asks him to make a pill for him. Yiseng stammers to say that he does not know to make things like that. Yihyun convinces him that he is actually very good at alchemy. He pulls out the potion that he just used on the bully from his pocket and tells Yiseng that he knows that he is the one who made it and sold it in the black market. Yiseng cannot believe that someone has found out information about what he does at the black market. The black market is a transaction system that completely hides the user's identity. Everything from the item's sale, the product's price, and the recipient. Yiseng only did it to earn some money, and he knows that his father would kill him if he revealed to Yihyun that he is the one behind the potion. So he begs Yihyun to keep it a secret. Yihyun agrees and informs him that he is not here to threaten him. He just needs an excellent alchemist to help him make the elixirs he wants. Yiseng realizes Yihyun is not someone sent by his father and agrees to helping him. He takes Yihyun to his workroom, and Yihyun tells him all about the effects of the mana enhancement pill. Yiseng cannot believe that something like that is even possible, even though he was the one to eventually make it 5 years later. Yihyun somehow convinces him to make it. He even tells him he's talented and capable of making it, and even if he fails, it would be worth it. Yiseng tries to guess the ingredients based on Yihyun's description of the pill. As he's doing so, his aura seems to have changed and he's not stuttering anymore. The two of them agree to work together, and Yiseng is pleased that someone finally believes in him. Yiseng cannot stop thinking about the amount of trust Yihyun has placed on him. His words have affected him so deeply in his heart. All his life he had been compared to his talented siblings and never gained his father's approval. So he's happy that someone actually has faith in him and wants to do well to please Yihyun. It's been weeks since Hell gave Yihyun her quest, and now only 10 days remain for him to defeat the dungeon boss, Nightshade. He continues training with Seung-yoon and earns new skills and experience. He trains so hard by learning from her and fighting with her that the training hall floor is covered with cracks and scratches. When Yihyun feels like he has improved, he tells Seung-yoon that he wants to put all the skills he's learned to the test by raiding a dungeon. When Lee Yiseng has finished working on the mana pill, he brings it Yihyun. He immediately consumes it and his mana stat increases by 15. The effect is so unbelievable that it makes the bitter taste of the pill seem sweet. Alchemy is fundamentally a profound science. Even when creating the same item, its effects could vary drastically. Yihyun is aware that even if he had taken the recipe to a different alchemist and asked them to make the pill, they wouldn't have been able to give him an item that would increase his mana stat by 5, let alone 15. He thanks Yiseng for the pill and shows his gratitude for the hard work he's done. There's still 9 days left before his time to defeat Nightshade runs out, but Yihyun decides that he is now ready to face the boss-level monster. Hell tells Garmer that there will be a delightful guest coming today, with a few equipment items, such as Valkyrie's necklace, rings, and earring, that he needs. Yihyun stands at the entrance of the dungeon and prepares to face Nightshade. He is transported to the land of the dead, and the moment he's there, he can feel the aura of Nightshade. He thinks that if he defeats it, he can meet Hell again. He has many questions about the adversary, Loki and Nornir, to ask her. Yihyun then tries to remember the special skill that Seung-yoon taught him, the combat style of a battle mage. The significant thing about this technique is that it is a hybrid combat style that uses both magic and physical attacks, and no one has been able to master it yet. As he's remembering the technique, he fights off a wraith, a draugr, and a skeleton soldier. As Sung-yi stands outside the dungeon, a woman named Yeonju shows up in a car. She hasn't contacted him since they graduated college, but here she was now, pretending that she came all the way just to see him. She starts snooping around the area and asks him if he is managing the dungeon, as that is not one of his usual responsibilities. She then pulls up a picture of Seung-yoon and Min Yi-hyun and asks Sung-yi why Yi-hyun keeps visiting the Yeonhwa Guild. Sung-yi simply tells her that it is none of her concern and she goes away. Inside the dungeon, Yi-hyun faces Nightshade yet again but is determined that things will be different this time. First, he uses the lightning chain technique. It does not seem to have much effect on the boss monster. Suddenly, the system warns him that Nightshade has entered a berserk state, due to which its strength and dexterity have increased. Yi-hyun is also warned that if he does not remove the stigma within 10 minutes, sudden death would be his penalty. Yi-hyun is shocked as he has never heard of something like this in a dungeon. But then he realizes that hell is infiltrating the system. He yells at her to stop interfering. At this point, there's only 7 minutes left on the clock. Yi-hyun thinks smartly and activates Wind Boost skill to destroy the monster's eyesight. Then, he uses a Flash Bomb skill, which should have been enough to defeat him, but the monster still continues to run towards him. Finally, he uses Sacrifice skill by changing it into an attack skill, and then he activates Light's Judgment just as the time counts down to the final 10 seconds. Right on time, the stigma disappears and the dungeon boss, Nightshade, has been finally defeated. Hell is impressed with Yi-hyun's battle skills and performance and invites him to her temple. After permission to enter the temple has been granted, Yi-hyun walks in. Hell congratulates Yi-hyun for doing an excellent job at overcoming the trial she had given him. He demands to know from Hell why she gave him the Nornir system and made him go through a trial like this. She grins and says that he has to grow as the adversary. Ever since he was born, he was destined to be the adversary to Aesir. He would be the one who will kill the greatest god, Odin. She says that it is what she, Loki, and the rest of them expect from him. Hel continues to explain that the world is heading to its end and Odin wishes to have everything under his control. To stop this, the strength of the adversary is needed. Yi-hyun has more questions he wants to ask Hel, but before he gets the chance to ask her, he finds himself kicked out of the dungeon. As a gift for overcoming her trial, Hel has gifted him a new skill called Hel's Blessing. It's a skill which enables all inflictions on the user to be invalidated. Inside the temple, Hel is talking about Yi-hyun to Mimir. He asks Hel how she feels about him after meeting him in person. She says that she is impressed because he won even after the stigma she gave him. Mimir says that he is relieved that he is doing a good job. Hel asks if he has anything more to say to her. He says he has no idea what she's talking about and Hel accuses him of feigning ignorance. She tells him that she knew that the adversary's law of causation was distorted. Mimir claims that he has no intent of deceiving her. Hel then talks about Yi-hyun's left eye, which is without a doubt the one Odin sacrificed at the Well of Wisdom. She asks Mimir to reveal what secrets he and Loki are hiding. He asks her to forgive him as he won't be able to tell her because it's too early. According to the prophecy, there are hardships waiting for the adversary. He needs a guide who can lead him down the right path even in the face of an insurmountable wall. The next day, Yi-hyun is with Park Hana from the Lotus Guild. She says she has a present from the representative as he will be entering Millie's academy soon. She takes him shopping for a long list of expensive equipments and weapons that he would need. They talk casually, but when Yi-hyun mentions the conceal skill, she reveals to him that the only raider in Korea who has the conceal is her brother, Park Sung-yi. Yi-hyun cannot believe what she's saying as their vibes are too different. Then, his system says that it agrees with the user. All of a sudden, there is specks of light around him, similar to the one that led him to the treasure gate. He leaves Park Hana behind and goes after the light. Meanwhile, Hoyeon is training for the Millie's Academy entrance event by having a dueling match. His father congratulates him for defeating his opponent. Later in the shower, Hoyeon is frustrated and angry because he is tired of this mechanical life, and this is not the raider he wanted to be. Back at the shop, Yi-hyun thinks that it might be a prank by the Nornir system. Hoyeon is also at the mall with his father. He is angry that he is spending money uselessly for buying weapons instead of keeping it aside to use for his mother's hospital expenses. Hoyeon hates how he has become a pathetic tool that always has to obey his father's commands. Suddenly, an announcement blares through the speakers that there's been a dungeon break near the mall and demons have appeared. The association have contacted raiders to take care of them, so the shoppers are asked to stay calm and follow orders. Staff and employees instruct and direct people safely to the exit, but Hoyeon doesn't move. His father tells him to come with him and not get involved, as if he gets injured, he would be at a disadvantage in the mill's entrance event. But he doesn't listen and makes a decision to stay and fight until the raiders show up so he can defend innocent people who can't fight for themselves. He also sees it as a chance to prove his worth and independence as a raider. When he finally faces the demons, Hoyan is too scared to move. His fingers are unable to move in fear even though he wants them to. Just as a demon is about to attack him, Yihyun comes to his rescue and also recognizes him as On Hoyan. Yihyun then tells Hoyan that he needs to help him keep the demons away from where the people are. Hoyan is still shivering and Yihyun commands him to compose himself and wield his weapon in a stern voice. Immediately, his shivering stops and he is overcome with the will to rescue people. Yihyun instructs Hoyan to lure the goblins, and so he activates the Cry of Aggravation spell to lure the demons. Yihyun is impressed by his high-level skill and thinks that even though he has a weak nature, he has potential to be very useful. He helps Yihyun fight against the goblins. After they've managed to finish them off, a man named Park Jong-hoon from the National Raider Association's management headquarters shows up. The man says that he doesn't know what to tell the higher officials as 2 kids have defeated all the goblins by themselves. Yihyun tells Jong-hoon to tell them that it was the Raider Association that took care of all the demons because no one would believe 2 kids were the ones who killed the goblins anyway. Jong-hoon says he would reward them both for the raid, but Yihyun tells him to give his share to Hoyan. It is a smart move by Yihyun as he does not need money as long as he's being supported by the Lotus Guild. It's also best to not draw any attention to himself before he joins Mills, and it's also more beneficial to have On Hoyan be indebted to him. Yihyun's plan is to avoid being noticed by his father. Before his regression, Yihyun had no talent as a martial arts raider, so his father didn't care. But now that he changed his career path to magician, he could very well go to all lengths to try and stop him. Yihyun wants his revenge to be quiet and discreet. He wants to get stronger from a place his father cannot reach him, and then he would wait for the right moment to rip his throat out. Hoyan feels guilty for taking the reward all to himself because it was Yihyun who did all of the fighting in the dungeon. But he needs the money for his mother's hospital expenses. Yihyun convinces him that even though he may have felt like he did nothing, he still overcame his fear and helped to keep the goblins away from the public, and so he is deserving of the reward. It is the first day of school at Millie's Academy. Yihyun and Yujung see a pretty girl named Seona. She is a fellow student who is already expected to be one of the top-ranking raiders. Yihyun wants to bring her over to his side as it would be advantageous to him, but she seems to be very different from the others. The chairman of Millie's Academy, Yaen, welcomes the students. As soon as Yihyun lays eyes on him, his mind drifts back to the moment when Yujung was about to die. He is adamant that he won't let her die this time. Yaen tells everyone about the special event that takes place at the Millie's entrance ceremony, a game in which all students, both old and new, try to steal each other's name cards in an enclosed space. All of a sudden, a magical plane is created around the students and the student hunt game begins. Yujung has fallen down and Yihyun is helping her up when Seona appears behind him. He couldn't recognize her before, but now he knows who she is. She's the girl who scored a 92 in magic aptitude. Someone who will change the present-day impression of the magic class and will go on to become an S-rank raider after Seung-yoon. At the Millie's Academy Central Control Room, the head officials are watching the event and discussing who the most promising students this year are. They talk about all the students who have a score of above 90 in their aptitude exam, but ignore the profiles of students who have changed their career path recently, as they believe that such people do not take the academy seriously. The cadets who enroll at Millie's Academy are quite talented on average, but even amongst them, there are a few who are a cut above the rest. The other run-of-the-mill cadets become a stepping stone for the geniuses in the end. Sometimes, an awakened who meets an enemy who they cannot defeat or faces death can gain another chance by reawakening. A raider has to constantly prove his worth, and those who fail are simply unable to prove themselves. Yaen's job is to pick out excellent gems to offer to him. The freshman student hunt takes place in a man-made demi-plane created with magic. Within that space, it is possible to carry out things that would be impossible in reality, like controlling the flow of time or removing the restrictions of the spatial bounds. And in this space, 5% of cadets are failed every year. When all the students are in the ring, Yaen explains the rules to them. The event takes place for 3 days. Only C rank or below skills are allowed in the demi-plane, and for every name tag that a student steals, points are earned. Yihyun realizes that he hasn't mentioned anything about unique skills or stats, which must mean that he wants to filter out the weak ones and keep only the best of the best. Since they are going to be spending the next 3 days there, Yoojung and Yihyun are off to find shelter. Yoojung suggests that they ask Seoina to join them, as having another person on their side would increase their chances of being safe. Yihyun knows that it is a wise decision, but Seoina is a variable that he cannot control. In the future, Seoina loses her senses in anger and jeopardizes the lives of the people around her. So Yihyun simply tells Yoojung that they cannot trust Seoina yet. But by then, Yoojung has already run up Seoina and asked her to join their side. Before Seoina has a chance to reply, 2 seniors, Shin Junsang and Kwan Soil, appear to steal their name tags. They are both warriors, and Yihyun decides it's better to face them instead of running away, as they could catch up to them or worse, round up more seniors to help them. Kwan Soil has a unique skill that allows her to find any target she focuses on within 300 kilometers. Junsang throws a sword at Yihyun, but he dodges his attack and counterattacks him, and thus Junsang is eliminated. Yihyun sends a party invite to Yoojung, requesting her to join his side. After watching him defeat Junsang, Yoojung wonders if he has always been this strong. Kwan Soil knows that a 3-on-1 situation will not work in her favor, so she is keen on getting rid of at least one of them and then running away from there. Suddenly, she rushes forward when no one is expecting it. Yihyun observes that this is a wise strategy for her to create confusion with a rush attack and then make an opening and escape. Yoojung immediately takes on Kwan Soil using her staff. Even though Yoojung is not an ordinary student, Yihyun still thinks that he should volunteer to help her fight Soil. But before he can, Seoina is already helping her by using Holy Light of Ulfheim from a Radiant Holy Sword. That was Seoina's unique skill, Falchion of Ulfheim. With that, Kwan Soil is eventually eliminated too. Seoina shyly asks Yoojung if she interrupted her fight against Soil. Yoojung happily replies that she won all thanks to her. After that, Seoina asks if their invitation to join them is still valid and agrees to join their team, and the 3 of them head to find a shelter. At the Nightmare Forest, 2 seniors see footprints on the ground. They conclude that people have gone by this way to find a shelter. The seniors tell the others to stop searching for now and instead keep an eye around the place where they saw the footprints. These seniors are angry that 3 freshmen were able to eliminate 2 seniors, so they are eager to find them. Suddenly, they spot Yoojung behind them. All 5 of them chase her. She taunts them by saying that they are chasing her like their dogs after a bone, and that they should be embarrassed to chase her in such a big group. Earlier, while they were in the shelter, Yihyun had planned a strategy with Yoojung and Seoina. He explained to them that shelters may be a safe place, but they can't stay there for too long because they need to find food, and most importantly, they need to obtain points. All this is part of the strategy to hunt seniors. As Yoojung is still running from them, she comes across some mushrooms. She is notified that it's a class 1 mushroom that bestows a debuff. Yoojung is glad that she has managed to lure the seniors to the right spot and leaves the rest up to Yihyun. Way before the student hunt event, Yihyun had gone up to Yiseng and asked him how to deal with the paralysis spore mushrooms during the event. Yiseng tells him that the sap from the ash tree, which can be found in the nightmare forests, would help with that, but it's just for treatment and not a prevention from the effects of the mushroom. The seniors enter the border of the paralysis spore mushroom habitat. The seniors discuss amongst themselves that it might be dangerous and that they should turn back, but then they decide that they should not give up after coming all the way here. The paralysis radius of the mushroom is 50 meters. When the spore explodes, everyone within that radius will be paralyzed for 2 hours. So one of the seniors stays back outside the paralysis zone to watch out for the rest of the group. They realize that Yihyun has used Yoojung as bait to trap them, so they're angry that they have been underestimated by a mere new student. When they manage to catch up to Yoojung and lunge forward towards her, she uses her staff to cause the mushroom to explode. Living beings within a radius of 50 meters will be paralyzed for 2 hours. Previously, Yihyun had already collected some ash tree sap beforehand along with Yoojung and Seoina. He told them that this is a game that favors the martial arts class, and with the rule of using only skills below C rank, it was a huge disadvantage to magicians since they are highly dependent on skills. Yoojung responds that at least Seoina has an inherent skill, but she just has some buff magic and some basic skills. Yihyun encourages her that they must use even those basic skills as best as they can. So he suggests her to use Change. Change is a skill that allows the user to switch locations with a chosen ally. Yihyun tells them both that he has a plan with which they can do something interesting with Change. Back inside the mushroom habitat, Yoojung has activated Change to switch places with Yihyun. He enters the habitat by stepping on the senior's face. The senior mocks Yihyun that he is stupid to enter where the paralysis spore mushrooms are. Then he says that he has set up his friend outside to face this kind of situation. To this, Yihyun replies that his friend is not gonna come for him as he has been killed by Sona, and all three of them receive points for their contribution. Yihyun is still with the senior. They are both within the radius of the mushroom and the senior becomes paralyzed. But he is shocked as to how Yihyun is still moving. Yihyun has activated the Hell's Blessing skill to protect himself against the effects of the mushroom and then eliminates the senior. There are 3 seniors still remaining, but he defeats them as well. Min Yihyun is at the top of the ranking chart, followed closely by Kim Yoojung and Sona. Yoojung drinks the ash tree sap and she feels better, and she and Sona head to the place they plan to meet Yihyun at. Sona mentions to Yoojung how Yihyun knows so much about magic. She states that she had never learnt that change could be used like this even in her books. Then, Yoojung tells her that he has only been learning magic for a while as he was aiming for martial arts class all these days. Then she wonders how he knew about the ash tree sap. Later, they meet up with Yihyun. Yoojung teases Yihyun that his plan wasn't too bad and says that he normally looks stupid, so this was very unlike him. As Yoojung and Yihyun argue and bicker playfully, Sona watches them from a distance and looks at Yihyun longingly and thinks that he is very handsome. Then, she quickly collects herself and tells herself that she should not be having such thoughts. Later that night, in the shelter, Yihyun is making a stamina recovery potion taught to him by Lee Yiseng. Sona comments about how Yihyun's performance at the mushroom habitat was impressive. She says that it's like he is not the same age as her and Yoojung. She also says that he seems very experienced, as if he were 10 years older than them. Yihyun is surprised as Sona has good intuition and even managed to get the time frame right. Yoojung then volunteers to cook food for them. Yihyun is against it as she had previously made cookies that were purple colored even though she didn't add any blueberry jam. Then he asks Sona if she is any good at cooking. Sona replies that she used to live with her grandma, so she cooked for her every day. Sona begins cooking and Yihyun can't help thinking how there isn't much public information about Sona's family. When she's done with the meal, they all eat and Yoojung thanks Sona for the tasty food by hugging her. Yihyun too compliments her by saying that he did not expect to eat such tasty food in a place like this. Sona feels happy because she hasn't felt this way in a long time. In the meantime, the Millie's Academy officials at the control room are talking about how the top 2 places are magicians. They wonder if it is actually a system error. Yeon cannot believe that a party of mere magicians are destroying their martial arts class seniors and leading the event. He asks instructor Kim Ji-yeon to replay the mushroom spore incident and watches it, wondering how a new student was able to have that level of judgment and boldness in that situation and beat martial arts class seniors despite being a magician class fresher. So they go through Min Yihyun's profile and they are stunned to find out that his magic aptitude score is 97%. Yeon is thrilled to see this. He laughs and says that it is very good. He wants to see for himself how good Yihyun is and decides to step in and create a fun picture. Sona and Kim Yoojung are discussing about their current score of 1,100,000 points. Yoojung asks as they really have to leave the shelter. Yihyun replies that they have to, as the current students are too afraid to come out to the Forest of Nightmares. Sona agrees with him and says that they have to go out if they want to obtain more points. Yoojung then asks Sona what the highest score record in a student hunt is. She says that it's 1,140,000 points. Yihyun makes an observation that Sona is curious and competitive. He decides to keep this in mind and they all get ready to leave the place. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they see and feel a force that feels a lot higher than C rank, despite skills above C rank not being allowed in the student hunt game. Yihyun's system sends him a warning that connection within the subspace is unstable, and the restrictions set on the contestants will be temporarily disabled. As Yihyun, Yoojung and Sona scramble to figure out what is happening. Standing in front of them is On Hoyeon. Yihyun calls out to him but he doesn't react or reply. They become cautious as Hoyeon is acting strange as if he were possessed. A closer look at his eyes and it's evident to Yihyun that it is the work of Gu Yaoin. Yihyun knows this because, before he regressed, something similar to this had happened at the Millie's Academy Festival. The day should have been a fun one for the young students, but it turned out to be a traumatic event. The main cause of the event was Gu Yaoin's inherent skill, brainwashing. After all his crimes came to light and he was backed into a corner, Gu Yaoin committed a terrible crime to distract the world and disappeared. A lot of students lost their lives that day and Yaoin ran away. That day was also the day that Yoojung sacrificed herself to save Yihyun. As Yihyun is well aware of Yaoin's brainwashing powers, he knows that he has to bring Hoyeon back to his senses first. But then, Yihyun receives a message from the system. It is a sub-quest that requires him to help the student nearby who has lost their mind due to a brainwashing spell. Yihyun's task is to undo the spell and rescue the student within a time limit of 2 hours. If he succeeded in doing so, he would be rewarded with a blank card. Yujung tells Yihyun that she would help him, but Yihyun tells her and Seoina that he would handle the situation and asks them to go as far away as they can. Yujung reminds Yihyun that Hoyin is a martial arts genius, but Yihyun assures her that he can handle him on his own. Earlier, Hoyin was thinking to himself how no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get to first place. He also thinks about how great Yihyun and his team are for securing the top spots, so he is determined to do better as he still has time left. His thoughts are interrupted by none other than Yaoin. He tells Hoyin that there's something he needs help with, a small favor. The next moment, his mind has been invaded by Yaoin. He wonders what he's doing and then suddenly realizes and uses martial arts polar extreme skill, which is a rank skill. Yihyun is surprised at how different he seems now in comparison to before. He seems more skilled now and Yihyun can barely tell that it's him. In terms of physical defense, Yihyun knows he's not as good, so he activates the active skill, but Hoyin deflects it. Hoyin reacted even before his eyes had caught up to Yihyun's movement. Yihyun thinks that his battle senses seem to be great. Yihyun is aware that he can just use absolute calculation to easily get rid of the brainwashing. But the issue is the person watching them. Yaoin. Yihyun knows that Yaoin is probably smiling his disgusting grin in excitement to see how he deals with a martial arts class raider. So, Yihyun doesn't want to win against his brainwashing power so easily. He wants to show the evil man what he's capable of. So, Yihyun uses Flash Bomb skill, which causes the vision from the control room to be blocked. It's now clear to Yaoin that Yihyun knows what's going on and how to make himself more valuable, which is why he blacked their vision. So, Yaoin asks an instructor, Kim Seok-gi, to bring Yihyun to him after the student hunt event is over. Back in the demiplane, Yihyun stands in front of Hoyin, puts his hand over his head and activates absolute calculation to get rid of his brainwashing. Hoyin is hurt and Yihyun apologizes to him that he couldn't help it because Hoyin charged at him. Hoyin cannot believe that he attacked Yihyun. Confused, he then asks why he would do such a thing. Yihyun explains to him that he was mentally manipulated. On hearing this, Hoyin remembers hearing a voice. Then he states that such magic is usually above a level, so how could that happen when there's a restriction on skills above C rank? Yihyun says that someone might have meddled with the system. When Hoyin asks who it could have been, Yihyun says that he doesn't know and then says that it must be someone in a high position of power. Because the sub-quest has been completed, Yihyun is rewarded with a blank card. Yihyun is about to leave from the place when Hoyin hands him his name tag as he feels that it's only fair because he lost to him. He also says that he will beat him at the Millie's Academy Festival and take the nameplate back. Yihyun feels proud that someone from martial arts class, which was something he had desired for a long time, has acknowledged him. Yihyun had been through a lot ever since he regressed, but this was a pleasant feeling to him. For the first time, he feels like he has progressed. The 72-hour event finally comes to an end and Yihyun has scored a total of 1,530,000 points, which is a record amount. They come back to the real world and Yujung is discussing her points with Yihyun and Seoina. The amount of points scored multiplied by 10 is the amount that would equate to real money. As Seoina and Yujung celebrate their wins, instructor Kim Seok-gi asks them to follow him to the chief director, Yaoin's office, as he wants to speak with them. At the chief director's office, the three students wait for Yaoin. Yihyun complains to Kim Seok-gi that Yaoin is not here yet, even though he was the one to call them to his office. Yujung and Seoina do not know why he's acting this way. As soon as Yaoin enters the room, Yujung and Seoina introduce themselves to him. But Yihyun stays quiet and says that he almost fell asleep waiting for Yaoin. Everyone else in the room is tense and thinks that he is insane for saying such things to the director. Yaoin says that he is ashamed for making them wait, and that he just needed time to prepare for this conversation. Yihyun casually replies that they are the ashamed ones as they didn't even have a chance to wash up after the 72-hour student hunt event. To this, Yaoin replies that he wasn't considerate enough. Yihyun knew that he would act like that as he still treasures talented students. Yaoin then says that he has nice offer to make up for it and congratulates all three of them for placing in the top 3 of the student hunt. Because of their achievement, Yaoin wants to give them a few rewards. The first is the provision of Millie's Academy dormitory suite rooms, completely free of charge, the privilege of priority use of all Millie's Academy facilities, and when a test taken in Millie's Academy is unsatisfactory, The three of them would have an opportunity to take the test again and change their scores. Yeon then states that with these special rewards that he's offered them, they would need to enter a partnership contract with Millie's officially. Yeon reads the terms of the contract. One of them mentions that while working as a raider for 5 years, 30% of the earnings have to go to the Millie's Academy. Yeon tells Yeon that the contract is more of a rip-off than a reward. Because of this, all of them refuse to enter the partnership contract. Suddenly, Yeon's system senses someone invading his mind. But with the use of Hell's Blessing skill, Gu-yeon's manipulation is blocked off, leaving Yeon angry. Yeon also cleverly uses his blank card on the brainwashing skill and copies it for himself. Yeon, Seo-in and Yoojung leave his office and talk about how the contract seemed unfair, and that it was a good idea to reject it. Seo-in also says that even if they accepted the contract, they would be starting with privileges while other people would be starting at a different point. Even if it may take time, it is better to earn it by themselves. Yeon sees how righteous Seo-in is being. Her personality now seems to be very different to the one he knew before he regressed. Seo-in also mentions how when an issue occurred in the subspace, neither instructor Kim Seok-gi or director Gu-yeon said anything. She then asks Yeon if he knows anything about the chief director because he is usually calm for a new student, but when he met Yeon, he turned strangely hostile. Yeon replies that he does not know for sure and cautions them that nobody can be trusted, whether it is Kim Seok-gi or Gu-yeon. They head back to their respective dorms. Yeon can't help reminiscing his old bad memories in the room. He does not want to experience hell again and so decides to find a new place to live after classes the next day. The next morning, Yeon goes for a run to warm up and then gets ready for his first day of classes at Millie's Academy. The magic class students are welcomed by their teacher, Kim Ji-yeon. She is the instructor for Introduction to Adjusting to Mana. Even though Yeon remembers everything from before he regressed, he is unable to remember anything about this particular instructor. Then, he understands that she might be one of the instructors who quit pretty soon. The class is taking place in a facility instead of a classroom to test the students' mana sensitivity. Kim Ji-yeon leads them to the mana room and the students start to panic. Yeon notes that it seems similar to the mana cube he entered before in the Lotus Guild, but this one feels less dense. Unlike the mana cube used by guilds, this is a mana room. It is an improved and less dense version of the mana cube so that even the new students are able to withstand it. The mana room is further divided into several mana rooms. The first room's mana density is similar to the normal atmosphere, but as they progress through the rooms, the density gets higher and higher. New students usually only reach the 3rd level, whereas graduate students reach their limit by the 7th level. Kim Ji-yeon asks the students to follow her and leads them to the first room. Nobody seems to have any problems with it, so they move on to the second room. A few students who are unable to withstand it are escorted away to the exit by the assistant instructor. By the time they reach the 6th level, there are only 4 students left: Min Yi-hyun, Kim Yoojung, Seo-in and Lee Soo-hyuk. They clear the 7th level as well and head up to the 8th. From this level onwards, the mana density changes every second as if it were a dungeon. Soon, Lee Soo-hyuk and Kim Yoojung also cannot handle it and are also out. Yi-hyun and Seo-in are the only ones remaining now. They head to the 9th level and Seo-in seems to be struggling, and the instructor wants to help her, but she is reminded of the instructions from director Gu-yeon that no matter what situations the students find themselves in, the teachers must never offer them help first. Seo-in, as she's struggling, thinks about how until now, everyone had said that we live in a world where only the strong can make it out alive. Even if she is talented at magic, she will always end up groveling at the feet of martial arts raiders. She has been told that there is no future for the weak. Seo-in mutters that she lost this time too. She is also escorted out while Yi-hyun tries to make out what she means by those words. The instructor and Yi-hyun enter the 10th level and the teacher mentions how it gets hard for her to breathe too after this point. Yi-hyun says that it is getting hard for him as well and they leave together. The instructor can't help thinking that Yi-hyun does not even seem to struggling despite him saying that it's hard for him. After leaving the mana room, the teacher asks everyone to clap for Yi-hyun, as he has reached the 10th level, which is what a B-rank raider could reach, and so, he also has potential to be higher than that. She then says that she hopes all the students try to do their best to catch up to him. Lee Soo-hyuk seems angry at this while Seo-in feels upset. Later, Yi-hyun thinks back to how Seo-in acted in the mana room and what she said. He thought that she was just competitive at first, but this seemed different. He thinks that it might be compulsion. It is a relief she wasn't hurt this time, but it would be harder to control later if she stays the same way. But of course, Yi-hyun knows that he will not get involved in her life and control her. But since he's already made an impact in the lives of Seung-yoon, On Hoyin and Lee Yiseng, he feels that he might end up changing her future too. And the same goes for Kim Yoo-jung. Lee-hyun doesn't exactly know how his actions will impact their lives, but in order to always be one step ahead in rapidly changing situations, he would need to prepare. Lee Soo-hyuk wonders how Lee-hyun was able to get to level 10 with ease. He asks his friend, Kim Min-soo, to tell him all about Lee-hyun. Soo-hyuk thinks that Lee-hyun is either cheating or hiding something. His friend says that this is Millie's and cheating is not possible within the campus. Soo-hyuk emphasizes that there is no way someone could be stronger than him without cheating. Kim Min-soo tells him that he could never ever be stronger than Lee-hyun, and on hearing this, Soo-hyuk walks away. Later that evening, Lee-hyun is talking to Seung-yoon over a video call about the student hunt event. Seung-yoon wants to know from him how it went. Lee-hyun tells her that he won first place. Seung-yoon is glad to hear that and congratulates him. She tells him that he is off to a great start at Millie's, even though the academy was infamous for its difficulty. When Lee-hyun tells her that he was worried that he might not have won first place, Seung-yoon asks him if there were any other noteworthy students. He tells her about Yoo-jung, Hoyin, Seo-in and Lee Yiseng. Seung-yoon knows that Lee Yiseng is the son of Lee Yishan. Family is family, so it might create conflict with Lee Yishan's guild if the Lotus Guild tried to scout him. She then asks Lee-hyun if they should still scout him despite the risk. Lee-hyun says yes, as Yiseng will become the best alchemist one day. Seung-yoon has to cut the call short when Representative Baek Ji-hyun SSI comes to meet her at her office. She is the curator's guildmaster. Without wasting any time, she says, referring to Min Yi-hyun, that she noticed a pretty boy that Seung-yoon has been fostering. Then, she asks Seung-yoon how much she wants for him. So that is it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.